for the last few weeks, months for some of you guys, the mystery, it's raising alarms across the country. Been hearing a lot about this. Drones spotted in the skies over several states, including right here in the Susquehanna Valley, hearing from a lot of viewers and getting pictures too. I'm joined by Albert Sarvis. He's a drone expert with Harrisburg University. Thanks for joining us. I'm sure you get a lot of questions about this too, don't you?
I certainly do, yes.
I bet. So yesterday, of course, the Federal Aviation Administration, they put these restrictions on drones in certain areas, and part of Lancaster County is now under the no-fly restriction till January. So why are we seeing some of these no-fly zones only in certain areas?
So they call them temporary flight restrictions, and it will allow the FAA and other regulators to go to those areas and observe specifically those areas, so that if operations do happen, we know that the people that have been following the rules won't actually be operating in those areas, and they'll be able to narrow down activity to something that is actually not legal.
And Albert, the question is they're trying to track these drones, like who's flying them. So what sort of regulations are there on flying drones? Maybe we should get into that. And should there be more? Should the FAA do more about this?
Well, it's a little bit tricky because night operations have been legal since 2021, but remote ID, where all these drones are required to broadcast a signal to not only identify where the drone is, but where the operator is, that's only been in effect since March of 2024. And many drones predate that particular rule and don't have the hardware on the drone to actually do that broadcasting. So the FAA has been proactive. They're very much about safety. But I suspect many drones out there that are not actually in compliance.
And, a question I have, we've been hearing a lot of different, I guess, the fish stories, how big these drones are that people are seeing. Some say they're the size of a small car. I mean, are there certain regulations on just how big a drone can be?
So the typical, what they call Part 107, which is a remote pilot certificate that the FAA issues, is limited up to 55-pound drones. So the descriptions we're hearing of these car-sized drones certainly would exceed the 55 pounds.
Right.
But I do suspect that at nighttime, our depth perception and ability to judge scale is greatly reduced in the night. And so I suspect a lot of these sightings are just like fish stories, right? They think they're larger than they really are.
And that's what we've been hearing, So how you sort of hit a little bit there. How common are drones? Are we just seeing them more, or are there more going up these days?
So I suspect that what we're seeing at night is not dissimilar to what happens every day in the daylight hours. We have regular traditional aircraft. We have large drones, small drones operating legally, doing whatever they happen to be doing for law enforcement or mapping or whatever it happens to be. And so now that it's happening at night and after a few sightings that may or may not have been drones, some of them probably were, I think people are just noticing it more than they ever did. It's even stars and planets can appear to move just because of the way our eyes operate at night. So it's not surprising we're seeing more and more people report.
I guess it's good that people are being more vigilant and, taking in their surroundings. But some, Albert, I have to say, they're worried about their privacy. So is there anything you could do if you see one flying, for instance, over your home?
I would absolutely contact law enforcement, right? If a drone is doing its normal operations, it's not, trying to look into homes or in backyards. It's performing some other operation. However, if one is hovering near you or certainly raises the alarm about your own security and privacy, then you should absolutely report it. Local law enforcement these days is much more aware of what the rules and regulations are.
And a lot of people are, drone pilots. They go through the training, and we have photographers that go through that as well. And there's a lot of hoops you have to go through to get the drone up in the air to begin with. Any concerns you see out there for, I guess, people just putting drones up there every day for fun?
Yeah, I think that, certainly recreational drones are a lot of fun, but what we do here at the university is try to educate people. We have courses to get our certifications for remote pilots. But the average, hobbyist flying a drone really should be aware of the rules and regulations. What you have to do when you're flying at night. How high can you go? Where can you fly? Where can't you fly? These TFRs are going to weed that out if people aren't aware that they've been in place of where they are. And a registered or certified pilot would be able to know that and should be obeying those rules.
Well, I'm sure this is not the last we're going to hear about these drones and people spotting them throughout the Susquehanna Valley and beyond. But we appreciate you talking to us, Albert, and sharing your expertise on this.
Absolutely.
Thank you.